Hello and welcome to the space between ideas. I'm Blaine Gates. Here we are again and again and again and again. That's what happens when you have a 101-day challenge. 101 days. And today is day number 92. Fantastic. So, as you know, basically, all right, so I've been talking about two things. So, one thing is that I am going through a summary of each of the checklists. And specifically, I'm talking about how I approach these checklists when I talk to people in a coaching session. So, 2 days ago, we started with state drive, all right? And then yesterday, we talked about state styles. Now, the idea is that state drive, state styles, state purposes, one, two, three. These are the three checklists that are connected directly with managing people. Of course, you can use state drive to you can do other things. You can you can look at the attitudes of other entities, of your providers. You can better understand how diligent your providers are, or your people, or if you're a politician, your constituents, or if you're trying to run a charity, your donors, or whoever you are, whatever you're doing, you can identify these attitudes by looking at how much time people are able to allot, or how much focus people can put into a project or an idea. So that's called the effort level. Then also you can look at it from the success. How successful are people at accomplishing the project, at providing the service, at creating the product? And how successful is the product able to help you solve your problems? And how much effort do you need to put into using the product? Or you can kind of see these two different dynamics, and then you can start to play with those dynamics. All right, so do we want to reduce the effort of this project, or do we want to increase? Do we want to stop doing something? So reduce the successfulness of achieving, you shouldn't be so successful at watching so much TV, right? You shouldn't be so successful at wasting so much time. I guess, maybe. That's just one idea. Then the next day, we started talking about state styles. We asked questions like, what are things that we're not doing that we should start doing? And what are things that we're doing, like watching television, surfing the internet, having fun, playing games, doing things? I mean, of course, everything has its place. But maybe at work, there's some things that you shouldn't be doing, or there's things that you should be doing. And then when you start a project, you shouldn't feel like strange. Oh wow, I feel like this is kind of haphazard. I'm not really sure what I'm doing. If you start a new project, obviously, in some cases, you're going to feel a little bit lost. Or maybe you've been working on a process. Remember that the fourth layer up is following a process. And maybe you've been following this process over and over and over, and it's just like somehow we're not achieving the results that we wanted to. You can kind of connect the two together. You can connect state drive and state styles. So you have an employee who is just following this process, and they're starting to get bored. They're starting to get demotivated, and their energy level is starting to go down, and they don't want to do it like that anymore. And the market is actually changing somewhat. So they're starting to reduce their successfulness, and they're starting to reduce their effort, but they're following the process. Well, maybe you need to go down to experiment with a new process. Or maybe you need to introduce some kind of haphazard, maybe you need to send your employees out through the forest with blindfolds on. All right, so in some cases, you may want to dial down to a different style, but in most cases, you're going to want to experiment with processes and find the best process. And then, of course, there's embedded. So that's when you follow a process and you're able to get more than one outcome. Or you currently have some machinery and you're able to produce more types of products. Or you're able to repurpose your machinery. Or your staff are able to produce, they're able to develop their skills so that they can have more outcomes. And then eventually it's like, how do you become effortless? You can stop working, you can stop putting in energy and effort. Okay, so that's when your effort level goes down to zero. All right, but you're still successful. So what's that? you know Maybe you've implemented some kind of software program. Maybe you've trained some staff. Maybe you have some magic. You know, how is it that you can go through those? All right, so you use these different state styles, use these different work styles to understand like how should we be working? What's the style we should be using? And then we use state drive. How much effort do we need? How successful should we be? We compact these things together and we come up with a formula. Now, at some point, like, okay, so if you want to move, now, if you want to move from, like, how do you become more successful? Maybe you have to change the work style, but also maybe you have to do some training, or maybe you have to implement some technology, or maybe, I mean, there's a lot of different answers for how you can help your employees to be more successful. There's also ways you can help them to become more diligent. Now, today in the state purposes checklist, we're looking at purposes that motivate. Sometimes you just have to figure out ways to motivate. Now remember that the state purposes checklist basically has 3 areas. So there are purposes where people really want to shape potential. That's just like what they're really interested in doing. They want to shape potential, especially young people. Why are they going to university? Why are they trying to what? Why are they trying to maintain and enhance their wellness? Okay, so young people, they love exercise. I love exercise. All right, maybe older people also have the desire to maintain wellness. All right, we also talked about attaining certification. So this is a lot of the time why people go to trade schools or go to university. They need that certificate. They need that piece of paper to do the job. Obviously, you also need, attain certification means that you're obtaining skills and learning methods. But at the end of the day, this particular one is like, how do I get the certificate? So if you have employees that are motivated, they feel passion to get certificates, then possibly you can wrap their current project around some type of motivational project. Like, okay, so if you do this project really well, we can give you some kind of certificate, or we can include some kind of training program, or we can give you money to do some kind of certification, or we can help you along the way. So if there's something you can do as a company to shape the potential of your staff, and your staff want to shape their potential, there's obviously a mix there. You can help to motivate your staff. How about other recognition? Sometimes people, they just want a real, like some recognition. If you recognize me, if you give me recognition, if you can show everybody else in the firm the contribution that I've made, then I will be very motivated. Because I like when people hear my name. I like when everybody can see who I am. What is my reputation? All right, so maybe that's the next one, enhancing reputation. So if you have some kind of project which will enable your employee to enhance their reputation, so you find the guy, first of all, who has the skill and the time and everything like that. But also, like, is there a way that project will help him to enhance his reputation? How about, oh yeah, and then we got the multiple levels. So creating resources, or gaining resources, or deploying resources. Creating methods, or gaining resources, or deploying resources. Gaining methods, creating methods. So we're talking about basically resources, methods, skills, knowledge. All right, what are these things? Why are they all in the same sentence? Resources. Who's motivated to create resources? Some people are really motivated to create something, create skills, create methods, all right, create knowledge. All right, so I'm trying to create, in the book Create Crucial Insight, Thomas Buchholz already created these methods. And now I'm deploying these methods. So obviously, I have some desire to deploy methods. And this is one of the motivations behind why I'm doing this. All right, ally with, create entities, relationships, or activities. Okay, so ally with. Now remember, we went through this back in the video, right? We have like every single one of these lines, we did an entire video about it. So I remember we were talking about the difference between people who like to create entities they're like the leader, the entrepreneur. Let's do it. I got this idea, and I built this company. And then you have the other guys who like to ally with entities. All right, so he's the leader, he's the entrepreneur, but I like to go with him. There's the driver and there's the passenger, but they're in the same car. All right, so I guess you could say that Thomas Buchholz is motivated to create activities, and then the activities are these different checklists, and I am motivated to ally with these activities. I'm in the passenger seat of Thomas Buchholz. Actually, I've sat in the passenger seat of his car. That's funny. Next is form agendas. All right, so we talked about shaping potential, people who want to shape their potential, and your job as their boss to figure out ways to help them to shape their potential so they can feel purpose and motivation. There's also people who are motivated to form agendas. All right, so people who like to optimize risk, people who feel passion to optimize exposure to risk. All right, they like to understand the risk, and then they also like to see how much risk they can take on so that they can achieve more reward. All right, so maybe you have some people in your company, they're willing to take on certain projects, which actually, other people, like if you're in a big company and there's a new project and you're going to leave like your department behind and start this new department, there's risk. Like, is the reward at the end of the day, is it worth it? Also, like some people who like to gain goals, purpose, or a sense of direction. So if you have like a lady or a gentleman on your team and they say, okay, I understand what you guys are talking about, but let's make a plan because I need to feel like we have a sense of direction. So, all right, so I understand you have you got this guy who likes to shape potential. He's like, oh, I see this potential market and we have this potential information and I'm going to create this potential method and we're going to make lots of potential money. And then there's this older person in the group and they're like, okay, those are really great ideas. So let's take those ideas out of the air and nail them down into a goal. Let's nail them down into a purpose. Let's nail them down into a sense of direction. Let's figure out what we're doing, where we're going. Let's form an agenda. All right, so now you can see how the different motivations, the different personalities of different people come together in order to make a really great team. Now, of course, at the end of the day, you need people who like to create effects. All right, it's not just, so me, I was like, okay, I can see this book. It's really interesting, create crucial insight. I want to do something with that. I want to what? I want to maintain and enhance my intellectual, mental wellness. All right, so remember my original, I said I like to, I want to help people by helping them get past emotional, intellectual, and what was my purpose? I want to coach people and help them to overcome emotional, intellectual, and structural hurdles in order for them to achieve greater success. Interesting. I haven't really thought about that for a long time. But that's where I'm at. So like the thing is that I'm trying to help. So that first one, helping people to overcome emotional hurdles. All right. So that's going along with maintaining and enhancing people's wellness. I feel a passion to help people to maintain and enhance wellness. And often, like when I work with people, when I coach people, I can see like there are some emotional blocks. They've tried things, they failed. They've tried things, there's risk. They've tried things, it didn't work. And so often, like, we're working through the structure of thinking so that they can like grow past who they were when they were facing those problems. Help them to develop these intellectual structures in their brain. Because often emotional structures are when you have these, you have these intellectual blocks. You're not really sure how to think about certain things. Also, I'm interested in deploying skills and allying with relationships, allying with activities. So that's me shaping potential. Then what about forming agendas? I love helping people to create goals, to think about their goals, having very clear goals. And then, using these checklists, I help people to have a sense of direction because if they can talk through what they're trying to do, like if I can use these checklists to help them to work through those things, then often they feel like, wow, okay, I get it. Often, like, especially some of the guys that I've been talking to for a longer period of time, that they've been through the checklists a number of times. And now they just like, they get on the Skype call or the Zoom call and they just tell me straight up, they're like, okay, I have this meeting with this person. This is the situation. And then I could say, okay, so, and since we know each other quite well and we've been using checklists for quite a while, then I'll just say, okay, sounds like we need to use this checklist. So we pull out this checklist and then we just structure the conversation around that checklist. And then, so I ask them a whole bunch of questions and then I write down all these different things that they tell me. And then at the end of it, then I put those ideas together and I say, this is what I heard you say to me based on structuring all of your thoughts through this checklist. This is what you're saying. And then they're like, yeah. And they get this sense of direction. It's clear what needs to be done. Now at that point, they are creating effects. So then they go to the meeting. They have satisfying experiences and relationships. Or they're providing resources, methods, and skills. They're satisfying principles, standards, and agendas. They're enhancing people's lives because they're the ones who are doing the work. All right. So in some ways, yeah, I'm also motivated to create effects. I'm also trying to help people to have these satisfying. I also want to have satisfying relationships. I also enjoy the process of working with people and seeing them as they develop, seeing them enhance in their careers. There's a lot of people who need to talk to someone as they work through their day. You have people who are trained therapists who help you in your relationship because sometimes a lot of people need someone so they can just voice those things, talk about those things, share those things. And, I talk to people about what happens at work. And I think that it can be helpful for a lot of people who need to talk about what is going on and have some structure to think through the things that they're experiencing. So there you go. So this is about managing people. You have your state drive, where you can kind of figure out what people need to be doing and their attitudes towards doing those things. Then you have your state styles, which is like a bunch of different styles for how they should or could be doing different types of work. And then at the end of managing people, we talked about state purposes, understanding the purposes that drive your people, and then trying to align the work with their natural desires and allow them to drive themselves. So there you go. So those are the first 3 checklists, talking about managing people. Today's day number 92. We have another 9 more days left. And I think basically there's 2 more columns. So when I talk to people, there's managing people, then there's kind of like developing projects, and then there are working with partners. So I think we're going to go to working with partners next. There are 4 checklists. The next 4 days, we'll be talking about how to work with partners and how I work with people through those 4 checklists. This has been Space Between Ideas. I'm Blaine Gates.